Do you remember how overwhelming homeschooling seemed when you first started? Maybe you are still there, figuring it all out. That's why I created my new course, You Can Homeschool, now available. In this course, you'll learn everything you need to know about homeschooling. It includes 13 videos that cover everything from choosing curriculum to family routines. And the best part is you can get lifetime access for an early bird rate of just $14.99. This price is only good until August 1st, so sign up now. Above all, I'll help you homeschool purposefully and simply. Homeschooling isn't easy, but it can be simple. Welcome to the Super Simple Homeschool Podcast, where we help you find purpose in your homeschool while keeping it super simple. I'm your host, Jenny Hedrick, and today I am talking with three friends and fellow homeschool moms who all work in some capacity while homeschooling. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
I'm super excited because today we are going to talk about how we manage working and schooling our kids. And so before we dive in, I would love for each of you to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, the ages of your kids, and what you do for work.
My name is Sarah Hoke, and I have three boys. My oldest is James, and he's 7. My second oldest is Amos, and he's 5. And then my little one is Miles, and he just turned 3. I have been homeschooling now for about almost 2 years. And for work, I am a dermatology physician assistant.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah, for being here.
My name is Jen DeCourt. I have 2 boys. Levi is 14 and Miles is 12. We've homeschooled for 7 years. We had a year and a half kind of during the pandemic that we didn't homeschool. But other than that, that's been our way of life with that. So was there another question, Jenny, beyond that?
Work. Or... What do you do for work?
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm a pastry chef and I own a bakery.
Nice.
My name's Erin Lynham, and I have 4 children. My boys are almost 13, 11, and 9, and my daughter is 6. And we've homeschooled from the start. Our oldest will be 7th grade this year, and my husband and I were both homeschooled. So we're second-generation homeschool parents, and I'm an author and podcaster.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'll go because I don't even know if all of my listeners know all the things that I do, but I have been homeschooling since the beginning as well. My kids are, how old are they? 11, 10 in 2 days. And my daughter, those are my boys, and my daughter is 6. And so we just finished our 8th year homeschooling, which seems insane. And I am a mental health therapist. That's my typical career, but I do a few other things as well, including this podcast. But that's what I've done for work since before I even had kids. So great. Okay, so we're going to dive right in. And the thing is people ask me this question all the time, or they tell me they could homeschool because they have to work. And it's a real big issue for people, I think, right now because of how much the cost of living has gone up in recent years. And it's a lot to think about having only one income. And so a lot of moms really feel like they need to bring in some income into the home. And so people will often ask me, is it possible? Can I do it? And, I think it depends, honestly, right, on the situation that you're in and what type of work you do or can do. But I wanted to showcase different types of work. And that's why I asked the 3 of you guys to be in here, because we all kind of do different things. So tell me about any curriculum or methods or things that you do or use that help support your ability to balance work with your homeschool schedule. I'll start with Erin.
So I need a lot of easy buttons because my time is limited and I want to make sure that the time with my kids, and especially when we're schooling, that it's the most effective use of that time. So I want to get a lot of impact into a shorter amount of time, which is one reason we homeschool, because there's so little wasted time. So I use a lot of podcasts for homeschooling. I actually use my own podcast for our science, and it's kind of a hack because I'm still technically teaching my kids. They're just listening to me recorded instead. And then we use Real Cool History for Kids for some of our history curriculum, and Truth Seekers podcast for some Bible. So there's all these free resources out there that these podcast hosts have poured so much time and energy into that you can use. And then we'll also use programs from Answers in Genesis. They have an online streaming channel, kind of like Netflix, but it's all Christian faith-based content. And they have science classes and fun like nature programs. And so we use a ton of reading. Like when I'm doing school, I'm reading literature with my kids is usually what it is. But for a lot of these other subjects, I'm using podcasts and documentaries, things like that. And then also just utilizing, we have an enrichment program that our kids go to once a week. And that's been huge because I just know I have that for sure time for me to be able to drop them off, know that they're being poured into, but I have a solid chunk of hours for work.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Thank you. Jen, how about you?
Yeah, my boys do the same enrichment program that Here's and Aaron do. And we do one online class through a school called Wilson Hill Academy. It's a classical Christian school out of Austin, Texas. So the class that we like to utilize there is called Great Conversations. And so they do a lot of history and philosophy, and they read the Bible and have discussions about kind of what that looks like then living in today, knowing this great wealth of information from literature. So that's a big one. And then other than that, we spend a lot of time outside, exploring, being in nature, going on hikes, being with people who know and love the outdoors and things like that. We also take a handful of classes. I require my kids to take an art class outside of their enrichment program as well. So my oldest son this year he's chosen blacksmithing. So there's a blacksmith place down the road about 30 minutes. And so he's signed up to learn how to make some tools and some like spoons and knives and things like that. So yeah, that's
awesome.
kind of what we do.
That's very cool. And your kids are older. So
Yes.
that class that you do online, is that for older, would you say, is that like middle school, high school? Where does that land?
So the Great Conversations class, they recommend not starting it till like 7th grade. Sometimes 6th grade if kids are really ambitious, but the reading load is a little bit more. Honestly,
Gotcha.
We do most of that reading load in Audible. And so my son goes out and digs dirt jumps and listens to his Audible. But and then my younger son has done a handful of history classes through that same program, and it's been really helpful.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Sarah, your kids are still real young. So I'm guessing it's a little bit different because there's not as much independence yet.
Correct. So for us, on the days especially when I'm at work, like extra resources and those types of things are pretty limited. We do an enrichment program once a week during the school year, and it's kind of part of the school district that my kids go to. And it's typical, it's not so much for education, it's more enrichment and socialization, that kind of thing. And, just getting the wiggles out when they need to. But we take them there and they do learn some art and some music and some gym and recess and just those types of things. So that's once a week when I'm at work. And then the other times it's more just kind of like, we will do a lot of the same things you guys do in ways, we will go on nature walks and I'll just have a little scavenger hunt list of things that we're going to look for. And my 7-year-olds can read and my 5-year-old can read. So I'll have words for them and I'll have pictures for my 3-year-old. So he's participating. So he feels like he's involved. And so it's a lot of just exploratory fun, kind of to supplement what we do inside our house. And we also do something called Saturday Symposium, which was an idea that I got from a homeschooling book. And basically, it's a day in the mornings, because my kids and I are early risers. So we wake up early and I ask them, what do you guys want to learn about today? And so I hear random things about, whatever that they've been thinking about. And so we kind of go down a couple rabbit holes. And then I try to tie it in with some type of art history, because I'm really interested in that. So I'll be like, let's also learn about Mozart today, like a composer, or here's a beautiful piece of art. Let's talk about it. And how does it make you feel? Things like that. So it's just an addendum kind of to our regular curriculum. And the boys get excited because they get to kind of pick and lead discussion and get to lead about, or like talk about what they want to talk about.
That's awesome. I love that Saturday Symposium. It reminds me of a post I saw on social media. Oh man, I feel bad because I'm going to forget who posted it, but it was like, what is the thing that most people would consider an add-on that you consider to be crucial? And I feel like that's that Saturday Symposium for you. Like it may have started as like an extra thing, but that's really cool. And I think you'll be amazed if you continue with it, how what that will lead to as your kids get older as well. So very neat. I love that. Okay. So anything else we want to add? Anybody think of anything when they heard from someone else like that they want? Yeah, I had a feeling, Erin. I could tell by your face.
Well, I forgot to mention, like, the number one thing that saves our homeschooling and keeps us sane is audiobooks.
Yes.
'Cause I have 2 readers and 2 non-readers, and they'll listen to audiobooks like all day long. So sometimes I'll play them on the Bluetooth speaker and they're all listening to the same. And sometimes they're using their own audiobook players. But that's just a way to get so much more literature and educational programming, and just keeps them very entertained.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually going to mention that as well, Erin, because that is 90% of our homeschool is audiobooks. Like we went through a whole year when I finally decided to get rid of the workbooks and the activity guides and all that, because my kids hated them and they were all dyslexic and couldn't do the filling in the blanks anyway. And I was like, this is silly. I'm not doing all this extra work. So we literally just listened to everything on audiobook for the whole year. And then it was after that I started notebooking as a way to record and kind of cement our learning. But yeah, audiobooks are our biggest hack for sure. And now that my kids are getting older, they can do that much more independently for a longer period of time, which is super helpful when I need to do a meeting or something like that. So definitely. Okay, the next question is, what do you do with your kids while you're working? Some of this kind of got answered. I know Sarah talked about that with the enrichment programs, and well, all of us, we all have an enrichment program, and that is a big chunk of our work time. Sounds like for all of us. I know it is for me. I try to get as much of my work meetings in when they're gone. But there are inevitably times when I have to work. And I know this probably doesn't apply for you, Sarah, because you don't work in the home. And Jen, you kind of work in the home because you work on your property, right?
Yeah.
But it's not really in your home. So that's different.
Yeah.
So when you do need to work or go to work, what do you do with your kids? Jen, why don't you start us off?
Sure. So I started the Sweet Petite, that's our bakery. I started that 7 years ago. So my boys were much younger. And when they were real young, I worked before they got up. And I worked sometimes a little bit in the evening here and there. I didn't work a ton while we were invested in the regular day. Occasionally I would get a sitter or something if I needed to be somewhere for a meeting. But now that they're older and we've switched locations, so our bakery is now like on the back of our property. Yeah, I work while they're sleeping. Honestly, they sleep a pretty long time in the morning. They're teenagers now, so I can get a ton of work done. And they're like, "Hey, Mom, do you need work today?" I was like, "Already done." Like, so there's some of that. But occasionally, like I have to do payroll in the middle of the day or something like that. But they're, again, they're older, so they can kind of ebb and flow with that. But really tried to, figure out, like you ladies, a good balance so that as we go through the day that, the boys feel like they are heard, they're seen, they're invested in, we're going and doing things, that the priority isn't necessarily the work, but it's what our family is doing.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to point out one of the things that I'm remembering and picking up on as we're talking is that school and work can happen at any time of day, at any day of the week. Now, some work, like dermatology work, happens in an office during office hours. But I also do a lot of work when the kids are asleep early in the morning. I wish mine would sleep in because I have always had early risers. But definitely those are options. And if you have to work during the day, like there's nothing that says you can't do school in the evenings as well. So there are lots of options. There's lots more hours in the day than just your typical 8 to 3 or 9 to 5 or whatever. Erin, what do you do with your kids? I kind of know.
Yeah, so I give them to you. I'll get there in a second. But so I also work early morning. A lot of my work is super creative, and those are my most creative hours. And something we've done since our kids were potty trained is they're not allowed to come out of their rooms until 8 a.m. And thankfully, because we homeschool, we can do that. So I know if I'm up by 5:30, I have a couple of hours to wake up, read, pray, get some work in before they get up. And then during the day, I do work a lot during the day. And so the audiobooks is huge. I already talked about that. And then just utilizing help. We've had nannies on and off over the years, and then trading with friends, like I've done with you, that my kids go over to your house and then your kids come over to my house. That way the kids are still having a blast. They're getting play day and we are getting solid work time. And then in really, really intense seasons, like around when my books launch, I will actually fly my mom out and she stays for about 2 weeks so that I can just like put my head down and focus on that season. And my husband and I just talk a lot about, okay, this is a season. When does this season end? So that we don't keep that same crazy pace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think I need to adopt the don't come out of your room until a certain time rule. We do have that rule. It's 6 a.m. That's how early my kids have like my oldest, he would wake up at 4:30 every morning. Like I had to train him to stay in his room until 6 so that I could get up at 5 and have an hour to myself. So anyway, I like that rule. So, Sarah, was there anything you wanted to add to what you already said about your enrichment program and, the stuff that you do while you have to go to your office work?
Yes. So we also, because I don't work from home. So what we do is we have a nanny, or we have someone that comes into our home and watches our kids. And actually, for the past 2 years, we had au pairs, and it was a fantastic experience. We had one girl from Brazil who stayed with us for a year, and she just kind of was great about immersing my boys in her culture. She taught them Portuguese, and being so young, they're like sponges. And so they still sing Portuguese songs. It's really cute.
Wow.
And then our second au pair was from South Africa, and she was with us for a year as well. And that was, again, a great experience. We just got a lot of immersion into her culture and her life and what she ate and her language. And it was just a really cool experience with that. I went even more part-time recently, just cutting back at work just a tiny bit more. And we decided at this time, this point of our lives, we don't quite need the au pair help that we used to. And so now we have a nanny, and she comes to our house just 2 days a week when I'm at work. And even on the days when my 2 older boys go to their enrichment program, my youngest is still at home with our nanny. And she's been wonderful. She, on the days when she is with my boys, my 2 older boys, I give her review material, and I give my boys some worksheets. And so she almost acts as a tutor. She'll help them with their work. And it's stuff that we have already learned that week. And so it's kind of review material for them. And then she just otherwise on the other day, she occupies Miles, my youngest. She just runs after my toddler and keeps him busy. And so that's been a great experience as well.
Awesome. Oh, I love that. Yeah, I similarly, when we've been in seasons where I've worked more, and when my kids were younger and they were less able to like not interrupt a video meeting that I'm having, um, then I also did hire a nanny to come, for one day a week. And so, it is definitely helpful. I do also use family. I'm lucky enough to have family close by. And so, like our enrichment program that we do is a half a day a week. And this past year, my mom actually watched the kids all morning and then took them to the enrichment program for the afternoon. So I had the whole day to work, and that worked really well for me. I don't know if she would say the same, but no, I'm sure she would. And actually, it was even better than that because she taught them piano on those mornings as well. So they got to have a little extra one-on-one music lessons tied in there. So utilizing that support, I think, is super key. And yeah, my mom needed a break from for the summer, so she actually gave Aaron and I the idea that we should like trade days, and it's been working out really well for the most part. So yeah, so that's been a good trade for the summertime when we're not as school focused. And so what types of sacrifices have you had to make in order to either A, work while homeschooling, or B, like homeschool in general, right? Because it's not like we're all working full time and earning a full income, right? And so, I think for me, like I've had to sacrifice some of the things that I would like to do in my homeschool, that I think I would like to do in my homeschool, I should say. Because like Aaron said, like I need an easy button, because it's like if I have to work, which I do, then I can't do all the things all the time. I really have to like hone in on what's most important. And while I do say that that is a sacrifice, I also think it's really healthy to just kind of pare down and focus on what's really important. What else? Who has something that they have in mind for this? A sacrifice that you've had to make to be able to make this possible?
I think definitely just homemaking. I'm not the best homemaker. And my husband has been so gracious about it. Like, not that it's awful, but just our house is not as clean as I would like. And I don't make from scratch meals very often. And he's so great about it because we've chosen this way of life. And I love the work that I get to do. And so it really has been intentional. But sometimes, I mean, when you're scrolling Instagram and you see these other homeschoolers who have these perfectly manicured homeschool rooms, and that's just not my life. And so, yeah, just having to sacrifice some of those ideals and constantly remind myself like, no, this is what we chose, and it's okay that other things are going to have to be sacrificed.
Yeah, definitely. I do feel like it's a constant like reprioritizing of things, right? Like it's like, wait, this is becoming too much of a priority, and now I'm not able to do the things that are really actually more important. And so we need to constantly be adjusting and looking at priorities, and that's ongoing for sure. Sarah, how about you?
I would say for me, it's been a sacrifice of, I guess, I don't know how else to say it, I guess accolades and ambition, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
In my career, there's a lot of room for upward mobility, but not in the sense that people think, more of like getting published in scholarly articles and speaking at medical conferences and having a presence on Instagram, being an influencer, like a dermatology influencer, or even being like a cosmetic injector. Those types of things. What my friends are currently like, I have a bunch of colleagues that are PAs. They are out getting their doctorates right now. They are speaking for major medical companies and like pharma companies across the nation. They travel. These are things that I've had to say no to in order to like be with my kids and in order to spend more time with my kids and homeschool. And it's been a hard sacrifice. Again, I look on Instagram and I see my friends like jet setting to London to go speak at a conference there. And there is a part of me that's like, I could do that and I would love doing that, but this is what I chose. And this is, in my opinion, the better choice.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Jen, how about you?
Something Sarah said made me think of it. Honestly, like social media presence and things like that. It's just not there. It's not available. I actually started hiring a recent high school graduate to do our social media because honestly, I don't care about it. And I don't really have the time to do those things. So that's been kind of a nice win-win. Is this girl, she loves it, she's good at it, and I can just hand her projects to do some of those things. But that's something that faltered for a long time, is just, people wanted to know, well, what's new, or what are we doing that is upcoming. And maybe that social media presence, things like that help businesses continue. We don't do any marketing stuff like that, but the grace behind it is that we're in grocery stores, so they do a lot of that for us, so we don't have to do as much of that to begin with. But if I had more time, I'd probably do more of that.
Yeah. I think similarly to all of you, like I there's things that you just have to let go. And one of the things that I do, I do some contract work with my dad, and the work is really fun and it pays really well. But I would have to really get out and market it to build it up. And I just don't have the time or the capacity to spend doing activities that aren't providing immediate income, if that makes sense. Like, there's like that whole thing when you were in business for yourself, where you're doing activities that hopefully produce income down the road, but right now they're not. And it's like, I have to do the things that give me a paycheck right now. And sometimes I have to prioritize that. And so those are all, I feel that. And I actually, Sarah, I'm going to be talking about that exact conundrum in an upcoming podcast episode. I'm working through it right now, just making the shift from career to home, and what that can really feel like and look like. So I'm glad you mentioned that, and that I'm not just the only one who's been through that too. So awesome. So is it worth it? Is it worth making all these sacrifices? Is it worth the struggle to balance all these things and, not have the Instagram worthy home and all of that? Would you do it again?
Yes.
Crickets.
Yeah. Yeah, I would.
Everyone's waiting for someone to answer.
I didn't know you were calling us again, or if you wanted us all to unanimously speak.
Go ahead. Whoever. Jen.
Yeah, I would do this all again. I love what my boys are learning. I like to see their confidence, and I really enjoy the time that they get and that we get with them. I had a mom at a wrestling match once. So my oldest son wrestles with a school that's down the road from us, and up until like the last week, people didn't know that he didn't go to that school, which was kind of funny. They were like, "Wait, we've been trying to decorate your locker. Where is it?" And he's like, "I don't go to school here." But he loves wrestling, and he loves this team, so we enjoy that for him. But one of the moms there said, point blank, like, why do you do this? And I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't been asked that in a long time. And the first thing that came to mind is like the gut response was time. That we get time together, they get time to slow down, they get time to work, like focus on, if there's something they're really interested in, they can pursue that. And I think it's a huge gift that we get to give them in this season.
All right, Sarah, how about you?
Well, for me, yes, my answer is a resounding yes. I think this was a great decision, great choice. I would do it again, but for the longest time, I was hesitant to do it, to homeschool, because I never saw myself as a teacher. And it took, it took kind of an eye-opening experience where I realized my oldest, my 7-year-old, was about to start kindergarten, and he would be in kindergarten full time. There was not a half-day option. And I realized I'm part-time for a reason, because I want to be home more with my children. And so that started to, in my head, I started to wrestle with that. And so that was part of it, realizing I wanted to be home as much as he was going to be home. But then also I was like, well, I am not a teacher. I'm in medicine. I don't teach. And then it took someone telling me, Sarah, you teach all day long. I teach my patients. I educate my patients every day. Every patient I see, I'm educating them. And then it even took a spiritual gifts assessment that I took, like this random test, and they tell you your spiritual gifts. And I got 100% on teaching. And I was like, okay, well, this is news to me. But so it was people speaking into my life, specifically my two sisters who also homeschool, being like, Sarah, you can teach. Sarah, you know your kids better than anybody else. You know how they learn. You know what makes them tick. Like, you know these things. Like, have confidence in yourself. And they kept telling me, like, you have a huge responsibility for these souls. Like, you help influence where they're going to go for eternity. Like, you have a huge burden, but it's also a huge privilege. And after hearing all that, I was convinced.
Awesome. I love that so much. Erin, how about you? Is it worth it?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our family's core values is do life together. And us homeschooling is a key way that we do that. And of course, there's the challenge. Sometimes I'll think like, well, what if I just homeschooled and I didn't work? But for one, God built me with this desire to work, this desire to create. And so I'm doing him a disservice and I'm doing my family a disservice if I'm not doing that God designed me to do. And so just that challenge is really sweet because it is the hardest thing I've ever done, but my kids get to be a part of it. And we get to figure this out together, as messy as it is. And for a long time, I worked just because I had to and we needed the income. And that's still definitely in part true. But at this point, I've moved into work that is so purposeful that I am confident this is what God created me to do. And my kids are getting to see me live that out and be a part of it and witness it. So all the challenge, all the mess, it's worth it as we're figuring it out together and living as God designed us to.
Awesome. I love that. And I agree. It is 100% worth it. And it is fun to get to see your kids' reaction to you doing both things, right? And having multiple priorities. I think it's really important for them to see that God calls us to be mothers and calls us to be, teachers, and Holy Spirit there, Sarah, by the way, with your 100% on the spiritual gifts assessment. And he calls us to raise our kids, and we're doing that. And he also calls us to other things, and it's good for our kids to see that too. Absolutely. So anything else that you guys feel like you have a burning in your heart to share with our listeners, or something you thought about but didn't get to say because it didn't come up, that you want to share?
I think just having so much grace. Like if you're in a position where you're homeschooling and whether you have to work or you want to work or both, so much grace in that your life, your family doesn't have to look like, and it shouldn't look like the next homeschooler over, especially if they don't work. And so just to and I'm preaching to myself right now, but to cut out the comparison and recognize God has called your unique family to this unique way of life.
Yes, absolutely. I love that and 100% agree. And the comparison piece can be so hard. And yeah, our lives are going to look differently because we work. And so remembering that and keeping that in the forefront. Thank you all, ladies, for your time this evening. It's evening. I know people are going to be listening to this at all hours of the day, but I appreciate you guys taking time out to do this. Hopefully it has inspired some of our listeners to, believe that they can work and homeschool, and that it is possible. We've all made it possible. And so you guys out there can do it too. So thanks for listening to this episode of the Super Simple Homeschool Podcast. Don't forget to follow or subscribe so you never miss a future episode.